Welcome to another episode of Data Analytics Chat. I'm Ben Parker, data recruiter and podcast host, looking to share insights and words of wisdom for the listeners in the data world. Today, I'm excited to welcome Oscar Carrasco Zevallos, former director of data at Johnson & Johnson. Oscar has an extensive background in the pharmaceutical space, in research to leading AI initiatives at Johnson & Johnson, and now currently building something new in a startup. In this episode, we'll explore his career journey, how he got started, pivotal moments that shaped his path, and also look at both working in the corporate and startup worlds. Oscar, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ben. It's really great to be here and super excited for this.
Good, me too. It's good to get a perspective from, I guess, both the corporate and startup worlds. So, I guess, do you want to start off with? I mean, how did you? What was your? I guess, what was your interest in the field? Was it? Did you start in the sort of? Was it pharma and then went into data? Be good to get what inspired you.
Yeah, I can give you a bit of my background and journey and some of my interests along the way. I mean, I think originally I was interested in the intersection of biology slash medicine and engineering. I studied biomedical engineering, did a PhD in biomedical engineering. This was focused on medical imaging. I always knew I wanted to build tools to empower, clinicians and users to better treat patients. That was always an early interest of mine. So my PhD was focused on that. But then after my PhD, I went to MIT, did a postdoc on imaging biomarkers. So that was a bit of a transition from the hardware device space to more data analytics, imaging analytics, biomarkers, etc. And that was exciting to me because there was so much exciting work going on in the software space and AI, and trying to understand the new information that can be captured from these medical images. So I thought that was a really exciting space, and it was frankly moving much faster than the hardware side of the industry. So that was an exciting turning point for me. And then I went to Path AI after MIT. This is a biotech focused on building AI products for pharma companies and later on clinical products. But at Path AI, I led a team to develop products that we sold to pharma to help everything from recruiting patients into clinical trials faster to developing new endpoints so we can better, more precisely determine whether a drug is actually working or not in a clinical trial setting, all the way to early research and discovery, enabling pharma scientists to make new insights for how drugs, for new drugs that they can develop. And then finally, I landed at J&J, which basically doing similar work, so leading a team of AI product engineers and scientists to develop some of those products internally for J&J to help accelerate our portfolio from early research all the way to clinical trials. So I mean, I think that the through line through all those experiences has been, my excitement about trying to develop new tools, leverage, the recent tech advances, and trying to bring those tools closer to patients so we can have actual an impact on their lives.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so, what's? I guess obviously now you're gone into startup mode. What's I guess
Yeah.
the is it more? Is it more personal? Like you want to just do something on yourself, or was it just, or has it always been a career goal of yours?
Yeah. So the last piece of that journey is now building my own startup, and we're still in stealth, but it's really at the intersection of AI and precision medicine. And the startup is trying to take some tools that are originally restricted to research settings because they're so expensive, and take those tools, basically build virtual versions of those tools using AI. And then if we can virtualize those tools, then we can deploy them as software at scale, in clinical settings and in actual settings where we can impact patients. So that's the goal of the startup. And to your question, it was always a goal of mine to go back to a faster pace environment where I can have more of an ownership around the decisions that are being made and around the strategy, and I can feel a little bit closer to having an impact on patients. So that was always the goal, going back to a small company, a small startup. And it just happened that, the timing worked out well with my co-founders. They were also thinking about similar problems as I was, and it just made sense to to co-found my own startup with them. So the timing aligned well. It wasn't necessarily a goal of mine to start my own company, but it was definitely a goal to go back to a faster paced environment where I can shape a lot of the strategy.
No, interesting. And obviously, look, there's a lot. I mean, startup boom, isn't there, in AI? I guess there'd be a lot of people listening, and obviously potentially got ideas to go alone or join partnerships. How did you get yourself in that position? Then was it through networking or friends?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it took me a while to kind of figure out an answer for myself that actually worked. The biggest piece I would say is networking, certainly. So reaching out to um, making connections with other founders, I think it's is the biggest is the big was the biggest takeaway for me. Other founders, by connecting with them, they can all open up doors to. Usually, they have friends who are also founders who are starting companies.
Hmm.
Usually, they know of meetups or events where a lot of these, early stage companies are presenting, pitching, or just gathering. And as you start building that network, I think something that helped me is my ability to serve as an informal advisor to a few of these, up and coming startups. And then that way I can kind of see, who's doing what, what's new, what's interesting to me, and maybe one of those opportunities turns into something permanent for you. But I think this approach of building up your network, becoming friends with founders, having them open up doors for you, and then serving as an informal advisor, and maybe one of those gigs can turn into something more permanent. I think that's essentially what I did, and I've seen it work in multiple other for multiple other people as well. So that's what I would encourage people to do.
Mm. Yeah, it's amazing. I think it just shows you the power of networking. And then, was this networking? Was it through events, or did you go out to reach people on like LinkedIn, or was it more just people that come in your path?
Yeah, no, they're all good questions. So for me, I was able to leverage a lot of my prior experience and serve as advisors to startups. So, for example, because I had worked at a startup, because I had worked at Pharma, I knew that I can help other startups. Maybe if they weren't doing exactly what I had done in the past, but if they were looking to, sell to Pharma or to provide, to develop a product that could be have a unique value proposition for a particular part of the pharma R&D value chain, I could help with a lot of that. So I started, talking to founders, specifically working in the life sciences and pharma space. So that was, trying to target that specific network, but also posting some, articles on LinkedIn showing that demonstrating, so that I knew a little bit about the space, and that also generated some inbound attention as well. But that's what I would say. Like, lean on what you think your expertise in, and see what startups are trying to could leverage your expertise. In my case, there are a lot of startups that try to sell to pharma. I know exactly what that looks like. I can help you with that. And in return, maybe you can help me a little bit to learn about what it takes to build a startup. So that's kind of how I approached it.
Brilliant, great. That's some great advice for people potentially considering it in the near future. So, looking back, then, what were key moments that shaped your career?
Yeah. I think there were a number of key moments. I think the one that stands out, and again, the one that's tied back to that through line of building tools and getting them close to patients, um, is one moment in my grad school where my grad school was focused on building this imaging device, bringing it to the surgical suite, giving it to surgeons so they can perform better eye surgery. And I remember I was fortunate to have this experience where I could actually take something I built in the lab, bring it into, close to patients. And there was this one particular case where the surgeon told me that if that person hadn't had my device and hadn't been able to use it to help perform certain surgical maneuvers, the outcome of the surgery might have been different. So it seemed like the device that I had built with my hands directly impacted somebody's life, and that was, very evident, and I had a very close, kind of like a front row seat to that. So that was transformative to me, and really everything else I've done since then has been an effort to try to get back to that moment, to try to replicate that to the degree that I can. So that was transformative from like a philosophical, motivational perspective. But then maybe more tactically, what was also transformative for me was the shift from being an individual contributor at MIT to becoming a manager at the startup I worked at PassAI. And to me, that was key because that helped not only instill in me the confidence that I could manage teams, I could manage, a diverse set of teams, cross-functional teams, people from various different backgrounds and expertise. But also it allowed me to see that was really the path for me. Like I really wanted to be develop my leadership skills, become a manager, really lean into the strategy and the vision of where we could go versus focus on specific technical aspects of a project. So that was another key shift in my career.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's also a challenging one, isn't it? Moving from an IC to leadership.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a lot to learn. And how, I mean, how did you do it then? Obviously, out of interest, obviously, a lot of people are. I mean, there's a lot more different types of roles, isn't there? Now you've got like tech leadership roles, and then you can progress into management. Did you get like coaching, training, mentorship? How did you progress?
Yeah. This is one of my biggest takeaways, I think, to date. And I think maybe I still have quite a long time to go in my career, but so far, one of the biggest takeaways is that soft skills, management skills, are just not taught, are severely under taught. People are often left to figure these things out on their own, and there aren't as many good examples of what, good management looks like, at least that are easy to come by. So that's a problem, and that's very different, for example, like technical skills, where the barrier to learn those is dramatically lower now than it was, even just a few years ago. You can get a Coursera, YouTube, etc. Even ChatGPT can help you learn some of these technical skills. But in terms of your question, how I was able to make this transition, I think finding mentors and advisors was really the key. Building, I call it my like personal advisory board, but building, this getting this group of people together that I trust, that I don't work with, but I've not worked with, at that particular time point, but I've worked with in the past perhaps, or just connected with in other settings, and giving them, going to them for advice about specific situations, how to manage people, how to do this, how to do that. And I think to me, that's made the biggest difference in learning how to be a manager. And I would say too, um, it's helpful to talk to people who are decades ahead of you in your career, and they can give you some long-term perspective. They can give you some really good advice about how to manage teams at different scales. So manage a team, manage, multiple teams, manage a company. So that advice is really helpful. But also trying to find people who are maybe 1 to 2 years ahead of you in your particular path, and see and get advice from them, and that their advice, they'll know, they'll remember exactly your position and exactly what you're going through, because it's hasn't been that long for them, but they can provide you much more tactical advice, how to navigate, specific communication challenges, or maybe politics, or maybe, you know, point you to books that they found were interesting. But I think at the end of the day, yeah, building up your advisory board is key, and especially for these soft skills and management skills. Otherwise, nobody really teaches you this stuff, which I think is honestly a crime. But yeah, that's how I did it.
Yeah, no, that's amazing advice. And yeah, like I said, it is a big struggle, isn't it? I think for the soft skills is you're dealing with people, empathy. It's obviously strategy stuff's got to come into play. It's a lot to take on, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a lot, and a lot of it is ambiguous, and a lot of it is just down to how well can you communicate your position and how well can you listen and understand other people's position. So it's very, very ambiguous, and can be very challenging because people have different communication styles. So I think just yeah, you have to kind of get in there. You have to get experience on your own, but the more you can lean on other people's, experiences and mistakes that they've made in the past, the more you can learn from them, the better for sure.
Yeah, brilliant. Cool. Let's move on to the next question. So what's been your biggest challenge in your career, and I guess how have you overcome it?
Yeah, yeah. My biggest challenge, I mean, I think it's related a little bit to what we were um, just touching on, which is communication. And in particular, so I went from an individual contributor to leading a small team to leading a portfolio of projects, which meant multiple teams, and now building a company. And I think communication is hard, and it's the biggest value add skill that one can develop, I think, as a manager by far. And more specifically, what I mean is when you're managing a large team, you're going to manage people that have very different technical backgrounds, very different communication styles, come from very different perspectives to that particular problem. So I think the ability to communicate well with each of those people, each of those archetypes, and speak in a way in their own language, whether it's technical, whether it's regulatory, whether it's clinical, whether it's business, whether it's HR. Um, I think that is really hard, and that's been the biggest challenge. But that's really, again, the highest value add thing that I've been able to do. And it goes a little bit deeper because you have to go in and be able to zoom in into the details, talk to these different folks, but then having the ability to zoom back out and put all of those um, take all of those inputs and put them in the right context of the overall vision and strategy of whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a project, a company, a portfolio. I think the ability to zoom in and out, that's key. And that is actively something that I'm working on, and it's been quite the challenge. But again, the people that I speak to, leaders, managers, etc., the people that I think are most successful are the people that are best at this, being able to dig into details, speak with experts on their own terms, understand, and then put those conversation in context of the overall strategy. I think that's immensely valuable, but it's also very challenging.
Cool. And is that again? Is that been where you've had to sort of dig into like your mentors to get this advice to help?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where I really leaned on mentors and then how to yeah, especially what happens if some of your team members who are coming from different perspectives, they don't align on a particular direction for the overall project or for the overall company. So how to not only just get input from these folks, but how to serve as a mediator for overcoming, different challenges or conflicting points of views. So I think that conflict resolution piece in particular, that's when I go back to my advisory board and say, like, look, this is what I'm dealing with. I have no idea how to even like communicate this to these different, like, how do I even do this? And usually they have really good practical advice that involves, again, trying to understand where people are coming from, but standing firm as a leader in your vision for the company. And as you stand firm, you need to be able to hold your ground, but also motivate people to follow your lead and to commit, even though they may not, be 100% aligned with what it is that they have to do. So yes, that's where I lean on advisors heavily.
Brilliant. I think it's obviously when people have been there, done it, bought the t-shirt. I mean, sports people do, athletes, like everyone's got their people that have been there, done it. It's to get you that paying for that. Well, it's to train you, isn't it? Really, it's to give you that knowledge gap, and then to apply it
Absolutely.
into how. Also, you need to apply it to how you want to, I guess, take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then what I would say, and I don't know if this is an actual saying, but somebody said it to me, so I always remember it. But like obviously learning from your own mistakes, that's the failures are the best opportunities for you to learn, for one to learn. I think that's true. However, the more you can learn from other people's mistakes, the better. So you can avoid their mistakes. So then that narrows down, like the number of mistakes you have to make to do your own learning. So absolutely, the more you can lean on others, learn from their successes and failures, and then hopefully you can adapt those to your situation, the better.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. So, what skills or traits have helped you stand out in the industry then?
Yeah, yeah. I think again related to what we're just talking about, soft skills, number one by far. I think technical skills nowadays are a bit they're obviously extremely important. They're almost table stakes. It's a par for the course of so you really need to, for whatever job, whatever industry you're trying to break into or trying to progress in, obviously technical skills are really important. The barrier to get those skills is lower than ever. Again, there's Coursera, YouTube, etc., or even just talking to people and trying to learn from them. So I think given that technical skills I think can be acquired and you're taught these types of skills formally in different settings, whether it's in school, through classes, whatever. So given that it's fairly easy to acquire those, I think soft skills are what can help somebody stand out in the crowd. And that's how you're able to, especially if you're interested in leadership. I mean that's 95% of the job. So I think those soft skills definitely can help conflict resolution, learning how to communicate with people from different teams, from different backgrounds, and then demonstrating, having a track record of being able to lead these cross-functional teams through challenging times, through adversity. I think that getting that type of experience and showing that you're able to do that, that's to me how you stand out in such a crowded field.
Yeah, and I mean, many people we've had on the podcast have mentioned like communications and listening skills so key, especially when you go into leadership because you're moving away from the technical element. So you need to put trust into your team to educate you, really, isn't it? So you want the experts to educate you to make sure you're still on top of your game.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a delicate balance too, because you want to be able to speak with the experts on your team on their terms so that one, you can understand what they're saying. You can understand where they're coming from if they're coming to you with particular challenges. So you have the technical background to be able to understand um, sufficiently for you to be able to help them. That's important. So it's a delicate balance of, having enough technical background and expertise to be able to communicate effectively. But to your point, you can't be an expert in everything. So you have to a lot of the times lean on the people on your team to trust them. So I think it's definitely a balance. And again, it goes back to this ability to zoom in, look at the details, and then ability to zoom out. And that's again a core challenge for leaders.
Yeah, definitely. And, well, and with the rapid pace things have changed at the minute, it's yeah a must-have, isn't it? Um,
Absolutely.
so how do you keep growing and staying relevant with the rapid changes in data and AI?
Yeah. And this is only going to get tougher, right? It seems like so for example, in the field that I've worked in the past, this field called digital pathology or computational pathology, where it's AI applied to a very niche space within the larger field of medical imaging. Even within the field of digital pathology, the advances, the pace has been just dramatic and has accelerated so much over the past few years. So I'm having a tough time keeping up with advances in fields where where I have, expertise in, and where I'm an expert, let alone everything else that's going on in the world. So it's definitely a challenge. I mean, maybe there's a few things that I like to do to try to keep up. And again, it's trying to balance the time you have to be able to keep up with the amount of information you actually need to have an impact on whatever project or endeavor you're working on. So you don't need to you don't need to like learn everything that's going on. This is my point. You can just get the main points and whatever's sufficient for you to actually be able to action on those things. But so a few things that I do. I mean, conferences are a great, time and money investment. So I think conferences are fantastic. If you're trying to just learn about a particular field, get up to date, maybe it's something that you're not, entirely familiar with, attend a conference, just 1 or 2 days. Yes, you have to commit, like maybe the entire day to that, but attending these presentations, getting a sense of what's the state of the art in that field. Not only do these conferences have, presentations and new advances in that field, but they also have workshops for, teaching you some of the basics. So conferences are great for me and really has a great investment in terms of trying to pack as much as possible into a short amount of time. Another way that I actually find quite helpful if you're managing a team is doing something like a lunch and learn, where you have one of your direct reports or somebody on your team go out and research, spend maybe 1 or 2 days researching a particular topic that could be of interest to the broader team. They learn as much about it, and then they present to the broader team. And in that way, you as a manager get the benefit of this person teaching you some of these concepts you learn. That for the presenter, it's great because they can hopefully spend some time learning something that they think is interesting, but also practice your presentation skills, practice, teaching these new concepts to people who are not maybe familiar with them. So these lunch and learns are great. And then I guess the last thing I would say is, yeah, if you have the time, do independent projects. Um, I think this is great. A lot of people don't have the time. If you do take on a project, that's the best way to learn, obviously. However, if you take on a project, have somebody to hold your hand along the way. That's my one piece of advice there. For example, if you take on a project and can lean, on some expert to give you advice along the way, this can really shorten the trying and testing and learning feedback cycle such that you don't go, a whole week and doing this project, and then you realize later that on day one you made some incorrect assumption and the rest of the time was wasted, right? It's like if you can go up to an advisor and say like, look, this is what I'm working on, this is what I've done so far. What do you think? They can really help redirect you if needed quickly, and that's the best way to learn, I think. So independent projects are obviously great, and if you can do them efficiently, I would encourage people to do that.
Great, some good tips. Yeah, I think lunch and learn is a good one as well. I think I've done it in my line of work as well, and I think it's obviously you can network as well. Network team building. It's got to all compact together, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's a great way to build to build knowledge across the entire team, and a great way for you as a manager to learn new topics, new advances in the field for sure.
Brilliant. So, have you ever faced like a major career setback or failure? I know it's a bit strong word, but and I guess what have you learned from it, if so?
Yeah, I mean, biggest career, I have many setbacks. Um, um, Certainly, like professional, like personal, professional, but certainly professional, many setbacks. And I'm trying to think of one that stands out. What's funny is at the time of those setbacks, so for example, getting a paper rejected at grad school. So, like I wasn't able to publish a paper that I was really excited about, maybe losing a client, in industry, maybe, losing a project and when I was at J&J. every time those setbacks happen, at the time I thought they were my biggest. Those were my biggest challenges, my biggest setbacks. But looking back, like that, I have the perspective now of, of time, which is those setbacks, no matter how huge they appeared, like how intense they were at the time and how disappointing they really weren't that bad. And in fact, there's probably going to be many more setbacks in the future that are going to be just as bad or even worse. So I don't know if I can point to one particular setback or failure, but there's definitely some learning from looking back at your setbacks and in your career that you've had to date. And the biggest learning that I've had in doing this sort of retrospective analysis is that nothing is really as bad as you think it is at the time. And then just give it a few days and it probably won't seem as bad. So I would say, like, if you have that perspective, and also the perspective that you're probably going to have many more setbacks, I think that makes it easier for one to be resilient, to just kind of keep your head down and keep moving. And most importantly, if you're able to do that, if you're able to just keep your head down, keep moving, it sucks, but just keep going. That allows you to learn from that mistake or learn from that setback and really try to analyze it in an objective way if it's possible for you to do that. That way you can see, like, was that setback, was that failure your own fault, or was it the fault of, primarily the environment and maybe had nothing to do with you? So trying to dissect what happened and take away some key learnings that you can use moving forward, I think that's great. And that's really the key piece. So the resilience is really the biggest learning. But again, like, I don't know if I can point to one particular setback because at the time they all seem like the biggest setbacks of my career, which just made me realize that maybe they're all not that bad.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I mean, look, you can have face setbacks. No, it's just, I think, resilience is, I think, it's key, isn't it? It's just get on with it. Um, and yeah, like you say, at the time, it's the worst thing in the world. But probably now, when you look back at how many setbacks you have, it's minuscule.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it puts everything into perspective. And same with your wins too. Same with your accomplishments. You can feel really good about a particular win, a particular accomplishment, but then you'll have more. And then at the time, they'll feel like the biggest accomplishment. So I think just having that balanced perspective and the context of time, like just knowing that this is a decades long journey that you're on, I think that helps one build resiliency and just be resilient and just kind of keep moving.
Brilliant, like that. Cool. And then, so what career advice would you give someone starting in the industry today?
Yeah, career advice, certainly focus on soft skills, communication skills, management skills. That to me is probably the biggest career advice. Again, because if you don't actively seek these things out, you're likely not going to be taught them. So you need to be proactive about these things. It depends, like if you want to be a leader and manage a cross-functional team, that's a separate, that's a set of communication skills that you have to be able to develop, set of soft skills. But even as a technical contributor, at some point you may, manage a technical team. So that obviously, maybe that there's a little bit of individual contributor work in there as well. But then if you're managing people, that's a different set of dynamics that you need to become expert at because you want to be a good manager. So again, that's back to management and soft skills. So I think that focusing on that for sure, and that will help you stand out. And the other biggest piece of advice, which I think we covered this to some degree, so I won't go into detail into this again, but building that personal advisory board is super important. Having people who are decades into doing what you want to do it, but they're maybe decades ahead of you. That is great. In addition to, people who are maybe a few years ahead of you who can provide more tactical advice, but having a sounding board that you can, if you face a particular challenge or it's ambiguous, there's really not a right answer for how to address it. talk to as many people as possible, and then hopefully, you can kind of basically integrate all of the input that you get from all these people and come up with your own answer to that challenge that is well informed. So soft skills, focus on soft skills, and build your personal advisory board. Those are my two biggest pieces of advice.
Yeah, I like that. And then obviously, I think you've obviously got to put yourself out there, haven't you, to network with these people. I guess don't ask, don't get.
Absolutely.
Cool. And then, so it's a particular achievement you're most proud of in your career.
Yeah, and I touched on this a little bit earlier too, but I would say, having something I built be used by an end user, a surgeon in this case, to directly impact the patient's life. I think that direct through line, that direct connection is by far the proudest moment, the best thing I've done today. And I think everything else has been kind of just trying to replicate that feeling. So for sure, that's number one. I mean, there are some distant seconds, I would say, like getting some awards at J&J for being able to deploy some new AI technology for the first time across a large global clinical trial. Um, promotions, all these things. I think these things, awards, promotions, getting, being able to build up a team. Like I think these are all great, but I think these are all steps, like stepping stones to the larger goal, which is patient impact. So, yeah, that's the proudest moment
Yeah,
I've had in my career, helping somebody improve their eyesight, and then everything else is second.
that's amazing. I think, obviously, well, especially since feels like since the pandemic, a lot of people want that internal buzz, like doing good from their work. So I mean, we've obviously working recruitment. Obviously, a lot of people are looking for that. Like, what impact can I make to this industry, or whether it's on a project or people or whatever the service is. I think people do want that now, don't they?
Yeah,
On top of a paycheck.
absolutely. And it's a key piece of, when things are really tough and there are many challenges, and maybe there are politics, maybe there's the environment, whatever. I think if you're passionate about the underlying mission of what you're doing, I think that's what again helps build resiliency. And that's what helps you get up in the morning and say like, all right, let's just get through this, because at the end of the day, I know if I can get through this and keep moving forward, I know the long-term path is where I'm going. So having that underlying mission and being passionate about it, I think that's key. And it can get you through a lot of hardship for sure.
Yeah. No, and I agree. I think if you're passionate about what you're working on, you're going to be one. You just want to stay with the business for longer because you're doing something you actually enjoy, and like you said, it gives that sense of that internal buzz where we can't get from a lot of things unless it's you make an impact. Doing that impact. It's obviously I guess one you know when you've done it, you get that feeling, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it really is, like I said, like everything, all these awards, accomplishments, degrees, they're a distant second to that feeling, as you said. It really is just a feeling of accomplishment that nobody can take away from you. Maybe no one really even knows that you have it, but you know it's real. You feel good about
Yeah,
it and it's there, and then you just try to replicate that. So and that's I think how you know that you're passionate about something is it's not something that you really can put on your resume, but it's something that just drives you, helps to drive you to keep moving forward internally. So absolutely. It's definitely just a feeling for sure.
brilliant, Oscar. Cool. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, Oscar. Obviously, yeah, you've had a great career, and obviously, I'm wishing you all the best in your new endeavor, in your startup. Yeah, again, thank you for joining.
Yeah, Ben, this is a lot of fun. Would love to do it again, and thanks for inviting me on.